Are you ready to be the best that you can be? Join hybrid business coach and consultant Charity Brown and her guest as they give you behind-the-scenes access to the insider tips and tricks that will help you take your business to the next level. Charity has an extraordinary approach to boosting businesses to break out of their modes, influence their industries, and become leaders of their packs. And she's ready to pass this inspiring knowledge on to you today. Learn how to change your game and build your business into what you've always dreamed of, right here on the Create Clarity with Charity podcast.
Hello and welcome to Create Clarity with Charity. Today I have an amazing CEO, Guillaume Wiatr from MetaHelm. How are you?
Hey, Charity, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to be on your show for a while, so it's a great honor.
And Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about your story.
I think it's your 50th show, right?
It is. It is my 50th podcast. So I'm like ecstatic that you're one of the 50 Dreamcasts. So thank you so much for being here.
It's awesome. It's an honor to be here for the 50th.
It's really great. And I know that you have some really amazing tools and insight for my audience, the entrepreneurs out there. He has some really great tools that I know are going to help you. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about your amazing journey here. I know you've done some really awesome things since you've been in the US. So let's talk about your life before that, though, first, so everyone can get to know you.
Well, as you can probably tell from my name and accent, I'm not originally from the US. I come from France, and I immigrated here in 2008 because my wife is from here, and she made the first move from the US to France, and we lived there for 5 years. And then after a while, we decided to relocate. She was missing home, and I was ready for a change. And one day we were sitting on the couch, and she's like, "Hey, look, looks like my former job that I left 5 years ago is opening up again. What do you think of that?" I'm like, "Well, you should maybe." And she loved the place where she used to work. She's like, maybe you should give them a call and see what it does. And so, in a matter of just a handful of weeks, we were packing everything. We were with our first child at the time, who was 9 months old. He's now 14, and we just packed everything, and we transitioned to the United States. This wasn't a corporate expatriation process. It was just us, putting everything in boxes and going there. And I landed in Seattle at the end of July of 2008. I knew barely anyone. My English was okay, but not as fluent as now. I had no network. I had been to Seattle a couple times for the holidays. That's all I knew. And what a perfect moment, in somebody's life to go reestablish themselves in the US when the economy is about to crash.
2008, yeah.
2008, yeah. But that's where I come from in the last 14 years or so. And previous to that, I studied in the late 90s as a management consultant, as an entrepreneur. Also, I'm the co-founder of now 4 companies, and I started, helping companies grow faster back in the days as a young consultant. Did a lot of trial and error things, and learn a lot throughout this process.
Yeah. And you also come from a long string of entrepreneurs. Your family in Europe had several businesses, right? As you were growing up.
Yeah, I think I would say I'd be, honestly, I was blessed to be surrounded by people who are still, because they're still alive, entrepreneurs. And, I grew up as a child running my little tricycle in the manufacturer that my grandparents used to run, and they were producing buttons and accessories for the garment industry in France, focused on the luxury segment of the market. So they were producing buttons for Christian Dior and Yves Saint Laurent and Christian Lacroix, and sometimes they would say, those big large companies would send those designers, and I was this little boy like walking around and playing with them. And so that's the glamorous facet of this. The not so glamorous facet of this, that when you grow up in an environment like that, you're exposed to uncertainty and tensions, and what if money problems and client issues, and because for entrepreneurs, as we know, very often time work and life kind of tend to mesh and be one. And so as a kid, I was exposed to all those conversations, not knowing exactly what to do with them, but that always kind of was there in my early years.
Yeah. And so that gave you a good foundation for when you went to school. You knew that you wanted to be in business, like maybe mastering, design and art or marketing. I think you got your MBA, right?
Yeah, I got a master's degree in marketing and B2B services management, because I thought, that is my belief. I thought, hey, probably the schools know better. And I did get a great education. I also learned a lot of things that formatted my mindset a little bit coming out of school. But it was a mix of things that I had to forget a little bit down the road. Like, okay, forget what the textbooks say, just this is reality now. But also it gave me a great set of good behaviors, good practices, different business manners that just shape a good etiquette and a good platform for success later. With hindsight, I was very fortunate to go to business school in France and learn all those aspects and tools, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that definitely helps mold us and gives us a good foundation. But as we know, it's not everything to success in business. There's so many other things we don't learn in school. So like it didn't really prepare you for the 2008 crash, even having a master's from France and having
you can't predict.
You can't predict.
The other thing, in those, if I think this conversation, Charity, is taking me way back, 20, 30 years in the past. And one of the things that I always look at is the change in how we think about business, how we plan for businesses. When, back in the 90s, you'd say, well, what's our 10-year plan?
Yeah.
And today it's like, what's our 10 weeks plan? Because that's just as far as we can go. So the horizon, I think the horizons, the typical horizon, typical time frame with which you're used to play is much shorter. I clearly see a change in how we are able to deal with uncertainty, and certainly the past 2 years have magnified the importance of that ability, like to just be kind of on your feet and just be able to improvise and do what's right. But where I come from was, as planning, oh yeah, we'll plan 10 years out, and all of that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. And so with that being said, I'm going to bring this up a little early. I just want to talk about this. When you're talking about planning, strategic planning, it can get so complicated. We list everything. We create all these very complicated, scenarios and checklists and systems that we're building, or maybe our entrepreneurial business plan, right? Or your plan to even just move to the US. You throughout the years have taken like a different approach to planning and creating, organization by creating pictures and images. So I want to feature this right now.
Sure.
This is one really amazing thing that I just love about you, and what I think the audience can get out of this is, maybe you could explain this. Actually, explain what we're looking at.
Why don't I just talk about the image that we're seeing here on screen? So if you're just listening to this podcast, what we're seeing here, we're looking at an image of me drawing on this really large 4 by 8 feet board at a conference. And we can't see the audience, but I can tell you there's probably 250, 3,500 people in that room. It's a very large ballroom. In that conference, and I'm next to Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and I'm just maybe several feet away from him, and just drawing live his interview with one of the journalists. I don't know what he's going to talk about. I have no idea. I'm not briefed. I just know who he is. I know what he stands for. But from that moment, I'm here to listen and to represent a visual map of that conversation. The conversation is probably 30, 40 minutes. And I use a skill that is called graphic facilitation. So that's, when you go to my website and you see that image, you'll see the graphic facilitation gallery. And this is a skill that I started developing early on. You're right, Charlie, you know me well, because I always thought that, business is a serious thing, and you should use rationality, but I always thought that creativity should play an equal part. This is a theme that Daniel Pink talked about in his book, in his 2005 book, A Brand New Mind, A Whole New Mind. Sorry, that's the reference here. So early on in my career, I just let myself doodle during meetings, and really, it's not that I was not paying attention. I was actually the person maybe listening the most actively in meetings and facilitating meetings in a new way. And so that really became one of my signatures, magic power, if you will, to be able to bring a large and sometimes divided group of people together and create that alignment through the use of a creative skill set like this one. So right now you're showing Charity, some example of some of the speakers that I've mapped out through the years. And so that's my way to integrate, analyze, and listen to really high level, high touch concepts and turn them into digestible format that people can actually use and do something with. Because when you do strategy work, you're going to have the best plan you want. If no one else understands it, it's worth nothing.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. You can have the 200 pages, PowerPoint deck with all charts and graphics and arrows and boxes, and have a great business plan all documented with numbers. But if that's not actionable because people don't get it, if you're lost in the weeds, it gets you nowhere. You can take that document and just throw it away. It's worth nothing.
And it really is quite boring at times. KPIs, metrics, profit margins. People are like, "Oh my god, okay."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are important. I don't want to come across as I undervalue them. I want to make sure that people understand that I put those two at the same level. But unfortunately, the dominant narrative in our business community is to be a lot more about rational stuff and forget about the emotional things. Well, that said, recent psychology research shows that we make decisions based on emotions, and we're going to justify them later with rational thinking.
Yes.
So it's interesting how thanks to research now, we're shifting the way we approach decision making at a high level in companies, and planning, how we organize, how we orchestrate complex systems, large set of people towards, and align them towards the same goal.
Yes. And tapping that subconscious mind, those emotions, even in conferences where you're meeting the speakers, like, how are you going to remember all these people? How are you going to connect with them when you just hear their name or just see them on a list on a roster? But instead we have like an amazing, about their, the most importance about them, their values, their responsibility, different colors, different action words that resonate with us. I mean, it really just leaves a much bigger footprint on the brain when you present things like this.
So the feedback that we get, this is right now we're looking at an image of Steve Ballmer, former CEO of Microsoft, who's now he's got many businesses. And the feedback that I was getting, doing this live in these conferences was, oh my gosh, when I people would come talk to me after the session and say, this session was great, but there was so much information that when I was getting a little lost or distracted, or I was turning my head on the left, I could see your drawing and I could see you're bringing me back to the topic. You're helping me. This is the value you bring here. So in that context, Charity, I was doing this for an event. This is, I'm not talking, I'm not facilitating. Now, I stopped offering that service as a standalone offer because my company, grew and shifted. But I still use that skill set when I facilitate meetings, and I teach people how to do it. And I want to encourage everyone who listens to this podcast to really take this very seriously. This is not just a I'm sorry, this is not just a fun doodling, kind of cutesy stuff. This is actually the base for better strategic thinking and better businesses.
Yes. And that's like, I just really love that you touched that with the audience, because when we're thinking about, living our best life, we do the dream boards, we really need to envision that. But then when we get down to the components and the complicated systems and drawing out funnels and automations, and it just gets so daunting, like just to take a step back, take a deep breath and draw it out. Right. Yeah. And then the magic happens. I really feel that is such a high level tool that usually they teach to, certain high level CFOs get in on that. But I think that's something we should have all learned at a foundational level, is like, when it seems overwhelming and frustrating, there's too many moving parts, just draw it out.
Pick up the pen. No, I could talk. I know we've got other topics to cover. I could talk all day about this. I used to do, a multiple day workshop on this. But one of the tools I tell people to use is really a shift of mindset about drawing, which is, don't draw necessarily what you know, but draw what you hear and what you feel. And there is something magic that happens in that moment, which is when you say you're used to document your business plan, your activity with highly produced PowerPoint decks, if those decks convey ideas that should actually be deleted, it takes a much higher amount of courage to do it, because you've invested so much time in doing this. Whereas if you're just at a sketch level and you need to course correct or throw away an idea because it wasn't the right one, it's so much easier, so much faster, because what did you invest in this? It's just a little drawing, right?
Yes.
Get in that mindset.
Yes, get in that mindset and see the ending result, right? You're going from A to Z, and then, the end of that framework or that flow, and being able to see that conceptually in this dimension it's so helpful.
Absolutely. And this is a skill. I mean, whatever company, this applies to everyone, whatever company you're in. I still run a small business, but I work with large businesses. I bring that skill set to Google. They use that skill set in their incubator, and they use that skill set, that drawing skill, to run sprints. So there are millions of dollars on the line here, documenting in simple drawings.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know you don't share that often, but I really had to make sure that the audience gets in on that.
You'll see it directly. I'm opening the trunk here, the special treasures. That's what's behind my website. If you go to my website, you won't see the pages that Charity is showing you. I'm just sharing that because sometimes I bring it up in my process. So
yes. Yeah. So just FYI, you guys, it's the only place you can see his amazing work and that insight, and just try it yourself. Like, I have a notebook. I don't know if you guys know, but that's how I do my podcast. I draw the framework out, and also my business funnels and structures. And it's been amazingly useful, because I used to do board reports, very strategic and PowerPoint, and those were my pictures, but they're not creative. That's a very logical way to do things. And now tapping into that heart-centered entrepreneur, where we're using our subconscious mind, our emotions, our feelings, that we're being fully connected, that it's not just about logic, then we can bring that entire picture to the people. And that's why you're here, because you have some more amazing insights as what, to your experience coming into the US, and, you battling the highs and lows, and making your own way and using your creative to get there, and everything. So let's talk about that. So when you came to the US, you had that American dream idea in mind, and, you already had your master's, you were working for corporate in Europe, and you had great skills, but it wasn't that great a time when you got here. So let's talk about your evolutionary process and how that all went down.
Well, my progress. You said my evolutionary process. That's right. It was a big step in my evolution there, because I hit the West Coast. I mean, I live in Seattle now, but the first place I lived was Tacoma, Washington, which is in the suburbs, the southern suburb of Seattle. and it's the summer, it's 2000. I'm like, yeah, I'm here, I immigrated, and by the way, I bought a one-way ticket. That was my
One-way
idea.
ticket.
One-way
Okay.
ticket. I made the point, not because it was much cheaper, but because to me it was a symbol. I'm moving there,
Yeah.
and we'll see what happens. And so I came here with this idea of, this is gonna work great, and the economy crashes. So what do you do in that moment?
Yeah.
You go
And
back
you
to
have a
survive.
son, or you had your kids and your wife, and you're.
I have a baby. My wife is a teacher. She's American, but she's a French teacher. So two people on a teacher's salary with the baby is, you can make it, but it's quite tight in 2008 in this part of the country. So I'm like, okay, survival instinct. What do? I heard from the past, and what I heard from the US, that you just go knock on doors and offer help and do whatever you find. So which is something I did. I'll say being French helps. People are, favorable to that culture. There is statistics on that. I'm not making that up. We're a culture that integrates pretty well in the US community. And so I started. My first job was to work at a pharmacy, mowing the lawn and painting and fixing things. Then I got a job at a retail store called Coach, the leatherwear company. And I got hired as a seasonal employee to sell designer purses. And this is something I never shared with you, Charity, but I came with the idea that I was the worst salesperson ever when I moved to the States. That was my background. That was my belief. I was a great consultant. I was a great entrepreneur, but I was not necessarily the best salesperson. And that experience actually proved me wrong. In the first few weeks I was there, without having anything to reference, I became one of the number one salespeople in the district in a retail store.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea. And so the area manager comes to me and is like, what do you say? What's your secret? Like,
Yeah.
we've never seen anything like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I just tell the truth. I just listen to people. And later on, she offered me the keys to the store. The store manager. It was a $2 million store, 20 employees, small team, but we're in Tacoma in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
There are about 350 other Coach stores in the US. What are we doing there that is so different? So she handed me the keys of the stores, and one of my golden rule was to teach my team to never see people as walking wallets.
Oh, wow.
Because that was kind of the impression that I was under when I arrived to this country. Is like, in retail, people see you as potentially spending money, so we get fixated on this. And
exactly.
So I spent a great time erasing that mindset to their mentality, to say, these are people in your community, so spend the time to get to know them, connect with them, and really find out what brought them to the store, what's going on in their life. And get to what you could do to make their life better. If that means buying one of our products, great. If not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
And that just brought this mindset, this mentality. So after a few months, we focused on customer service, and we broke the record for the whole company. We were focusing not on dollar volume, because we could not compete with stores like New York or Rodeo Drive or bigger store in Florida. There's no way. The potential wasn't there. But what we could compete on is how we made people feel in the store. That was always there was a territory where I could compete with my team. And so we sat down and say, what's the metric? How could we measure this? And it turns out the company would send a secret shopper to our store every month and rank us on a series of criteria. And the big store would just be like, we're so big. They had kind of this mindset, like, we're so big, we make so much, like, it's okay, we fail a little bit at this because we're still doing really well. And we took this, actually, we took that very seriously. So for 48 months in a row, we broke the record in the company to have 100%.
Oh, wow.
It was the first time that had ever happened in the company. So from that moment, I knew that what I could bring to other companies was, sorry, not 48, 36 months, because I stayed there 3 years, to be honest, to be precise. So from that moment, there was another confirmation that what my secret thing was, my best, whatever I could bring the best to companies, was really this idea of aligning people and change the way they see things, change the narrative in their mind, in the way they work, to build better businesses.
Yes, change the narrative. Oh my gosh, it's all in our heads, isn't it?
Yeah,
We
in
really
our words too.
in our words
Absolutely.
too. Yes.
Yeah.
And really tapping into that, subconscious mind. I mean, marketing is very psychological, right? Selling to people, appealing to people, getting people to want to buy from you is a process, and focusing on the organic and the more authentic way to sell. And so that's why I really, love the story about the coach, because that is probably your first gateway into this higher level coaching that you've gotten into, right? Because at that point you started getting some high level executive coaching and mentors that were helping you kind of steer you and mold you into what you're doing now, right?
I always saw that part of my career. It's for people that I had left in France. I mean, here's the context. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, graduated from one of the top 3 schools in France, with a master's, start at working with etiquette, which is one of the top 5 strategy consulting firm in the world in France. I co-found 3 companies. I have a very successful track record, and all of a sudden, my network and friends and family see me in a retail store in the suburbs of Seattle selling purses, and they go, "What's wrong? What's going on here? We don't understand this." Because people come at this kind of changes with a lot of prejudice, biases. They don't necessarily see what's happening. The way I saw it was, I want to prove that I can integrate here. I want to first pay forward that I can understand how this culture works. And it doesn't matter where I am. People are people. And I just love that experience. For me today, it's one of the best experiences in my career. That said, in parallel, I was seeking coaching all the time. And there's this big myth that, in business, you have to do everything on your own and yourself. Like, if you don't get help, you're just not good.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that this narrative is it's kind of the opposite in domains like sports or arts. Like, do you think Tiger Woods had never had a coach? Tiger Woods, the golfer. His dad was the coach. He was the coach from the get-go, from the, he was in this his bassinet. He had a coach, right? That's how he got so successful. He had incredible, abilities too. But in business, we should really pay attention to this and take this a lot seriously. So the first thing I did was also seeking coaching. From the first month I landed in the United States, and I hired someone, at my level, that gave me a great coaching deal, and I just invested in myself the whole time. And to this day, I work with 2, sometimes 3 coaches all the time, because you can't. I mean, if you think you can do this on your own, you cannot. You're wrong. You need to be in that open-mindedness state where you have to be okay with vulnerability and seek feedback and continue to improve, who you are. That's how you deliver better value for the people you work with. It's like a chain, it comes from somewhere, and you just pass it on. So I did seek coaching, Charity, to your point. I did that, and I still do it.
Yeah. And I just want the audience out there to hear, I mean, that's really where the shift happens, the change. Like, sometimes there's points where we feel like we already know it all, or maybe our ego is telling us that we already know it all, or we don't need coaching, or we feel like a little humbled to ask for help. But it's really so important to evolve, right? And to see things from a different perspective. So I love that you facilitate that, and you bring that to the strategic, to this narrative that you're creating here. It takes a lot of coaching for people to get into the strategic narrative, right? So let's talk about this amazing firm that you've built, and what MetaHelm is, and how you help people briefly. I mean, I know this isn't really a pitch for this, because this is more for like, big corp and that kind of stuff, but let's talk about your framework here and how you help people shift their narrative.
So my company is called MetaHelm, and we specialize in strategic narrative for established companies. And what we provide, the value we provide, is really we guide CEOs, founders, business leaders, business owners to do two things. One is to align everyone inside and outside the company, and number two is to accelerate the adoption of their product. And most of the time, it's an innovation. And so, in the context I operate, I work with, you said big companies. I do, and I have a track record for working with big brands. I will take on smaller firms sometimes, and I do have an offer for early stage companies, because I believe that the earlier you can build a narrative, the better you're off. So I don't close the door to that. It's just a different approach. But the starting point is, you can have the best product, you can have the best reputation, the best marketing, but if people don't sustainably and consistently see where your ship is going, you're probably losing millions. You're jeopardizing your company. And research shows, and my experience shows, that in companies of a certain size, after you've taken off, you've launched, people start to losing sight of the direction that you're going to long term. And this is accentuated with the fact that these days, everything feels changing, that it's changing all the time. So how do you bring people back, in sync? How do you make them collaborate? That's what I mean by aligning them. How do you bring everyone together? How do you explain to them where the company is headed? And how do you bring them in a conversation where they can also participate in where the company should go? Because it's not just a one-way top-down thing. It's a collaborative effort. So that's what my company does, and the results have always amazed me. I get calls sometimes from my clients, and they go, you don't know, you have no idea what just happened to me. I just used the narrative that we built together, and I just signed a contract that I thought we would never sign. I'm getting these emails from my teams like, what happened to you? You've renewed your sense of leadership. We've renewed your leadership, and you've renewed our sense of trust.
Mm-hmm.
How much is this worth to you guys? How much is this worth to a company? And not to mention, these days, people don't just come for a paycheck. I mean, we're seeing it with the Great Resignation. We want meaning in a company.
Yes.
So I really, position this idea of a strategic narrative as a simple method to that you can use to make everyone understand their business, believe in it, and really get behind it. And these days, I mean, okay, I'm going to stop here because I could go on and on. I'm so passionate.
And I just want to mention, just so people get a really firm understanding of the really, strategic kind of questions that you can ask yourself if you need to dial into your narrative, your business narrative. Like, I like this one spot on your homepage that talks about, if your strategy is confusing, you'll lose millions, right? And so to ask these very certain questions here that you have, like, is your strategic initiative slowing down? Is explaining your big idea complicated? Are you struggling to bring everyone with you? Do you need to unify your team around common message? Like, answer these questions, and you'll know if you need to work on that strategic narrative, right? Yeah. And to simplify it and have it appeal to everyone, so everyone is on the same page. So
that segment that you're pointing out, on my homepage, is what I call my 30 seconds self-diagnosis here. You can do it on your own. You can go there, and if you go like, yep, I've got this, I got it. Okay, you know that you've got a narrative problem. I do make a difference between a story and a narrative. Most people in my space don't. We use the words interchangeably. I make a great deal making a difference. The story has happened in the past. The story is something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A narrative is a lot more subconscious, and it's something that remains open-ended. In fact, there is a lot more talks in the business community, in the strategy community, about the fact that uncertainty might not be as bad as we think. when uncertainty is around, things are open-ended. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with AI, with NFTs or cryptocurrencies, for instance. I'm giving you examples here, or uncertainty with the tension in Europe now. What this creates is that people will raise to the next level. They will be more motivated. They will feel a sense of engagement. They want to be participants of how we're going to answer these questions. So when I do work with airlines and tech companies and first-time founders, I always make a point of explaining to them what the difference is. Okay, if you're in the storytelling mindset, which for me, storytelling, business storytelling 1.0, I call it, it's kind of dead, to be honest. I go, if you're in there, what you're seeking to do is giving certainty and guarantees, and you're making this great effort to reassure people all the time. But the truth is, you don't know. So why don't you say the truth and say, our company has come from this background. This is where we are today. We're thinking we are going this way, but we'd like to invite you as a participant to our brand. And this is exactly how big brands like Nike, Apple have operated throughout the decades, but they were just outliers. And what I'm thinking now is that there's really a democratization of that approach, that leadership approach to company building. Like, building a narrative is creating a strong call to action that people can rally around. It's really building a company that is a vehicle to create an impact that we all hope for. It's not just selling stuff to people. I just hate that. Like, we're selling. Our goal is just to make money first. No, your goal is to help a community first, and then if it means people are going to buy your product to do that, then great.
Yeah.
But maybe it's another solution. You don't know. That's the open-end mindset here.
I love that, because it really is about solving problems, right? We create businesses to help people solve their problem or have products that help solve a problem, right? And so that's really key now. And to have that in your CTA, to have that in your call to action, to have that as, the foundation that first we're going to solve your problem. Here's our solution, even if we're still figuring out a bulletproof process for the solution.
Right.
The first step is solving the problem.
Exactly. I know you have a great book on evolutionary entrepreneurship, Charity, and I love to hear how this came up to how this came up, how this came to you. Like, what was there? I mean, this is a candid question, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
I don't mean to reverse the roles, but still, I think it's fascinating to hear how you came up with this idea of your book, like, especially with the word evolutionary. My hypothesis is that you were in that exact mindset I was describing.
Yes, and it's more heart-centered, right? So I did a lot of work on having the heart-brain connection, connecting not just my methodical, strategic mind of being an accountant, CFO, business owner for all these years. We're very in the box. And sometimes we lose that heart-centered mentality that, we can change the world together. This is a collective. This is something that we all do together, and we're on the same mission. And here we are changing lives and transforming people's mindsets and helping them come into that more elevated existence than just capitalism and making that almighty dollar, right? It's about changing the heart and the mind at the same time. So that's why what the book and really my 9-step programs to inner freedom, learning to tap into the conscious mind and let it do its job, and to program yourself with positivity and love and the vision, and really dialing into what problems we're solving for others and how we can help. So that's
and I bet I would tell me if I'm wrong, but I would bet that you had that as a foundational platform, right? Platform of thought, of idea, and then the products that you created over time. These came maybe after. They're not just afterthoughts; they're integrated, but they maybe came after, and they continue to evolve, right?
Yes. So it's an evolutionary process, right? Because we're always growing. As long as we always know that we're always growing, learning, metamorphosizing, and creating a better vision of how we can help others, and ways we can do that through systems, through programs, through podcasts, through books, through all the things that we're doing to help, elevate people that may not have had that
Yes.
insight yet, and it took me 40 years to find it. So when after 20 years of being in corporate, when do we get that light bulb moment, right?
So what I'm hearing, so back to the topic of narrative, because I think, thank you for letting me ask this question, because what I wanted to do here is kind of, mirror a few things here. One, the thing you just said, it took you 40 years. It takes a long time to build a narrative like that. That's also a message for our audience here, is like, don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. No, yeah, because now a lot of my students are in their 20s and they're just fresh out of, they were stuck in COVID and couldn't go back to school and they need to change their narrative too. We all did. We all had to feel that massive shift where it's time to take control and power of our own life and really tap into our soul mission and purpose. And what does that feel like to us? What does that look like? So that's why I love the drawing, because if we just list out and write out things about how we want our life to be, but we can't really see the picture and the process of it evolving and really getting into how would life feel better if we came from it in a perspective of what problem do we solve? How do we help others through our skills and talents?
And the second thing I hear, you're able to talk about it on the spot to any audience, right? It's fully integrated. It's not a marketing message that you have somebody else developed and put on your website and that you don't know exactly and you can't repeat it. Because I see that all the time. CEOs, they'll tell me, oh yeah, we've got a great narrative. Like, what is it? I'm not sure. Let's look at our website. I'm like, okay, we have a problem here. So the second thing I hear is that you embody it. You can talk about it. You can make people excited about it. And the third thing I hear that shows me that you have a great strategic narrative is that you're able to name it. You give it a label. Evolutionary entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, because it is a shift. It's a choice and a mindset.
These are the things that I seek my clients to go after. So there you go.
Thank you for asking. It's like my soul mission now and my life's purpose, because I love business. I love entrepreneurship, but it did have kind of the narrative was very too strict, rigid in the box for me at a lot of times where I just felt like I wish I could express my creative more. I wish I liked this more, I wanted it to be more heart-centered and have a better image and vision of how I help people. And so I think that's really the core of it, is that heart-brain connection and really understanding how it can help others. So let's talk about that, because I know you have an awesome offer. We could talk about your CTA now, your strategic narrative opportunity for our audience to get in with you.
So the first thing that I'm going to repeat myself a little bit, is really understanding the definition that I put behind strategic narrative. Most people will say, oh, it's like telling an important story, right? Something bigger than that. So it's in this book. If you go to my website and you just type in strategicnarrative.com, that's how you will end up on my website. You will be able to download my latest ebook for free. It's called Strategic Narrative, a simple method that business leaders can use to help everyone understand their business, get behind it, and believe in it. There's an ebook version. It's a quick read. And there's also a video version that has received really raving reviews. It's a 13-minute video. What is 13 minutes in your day? It's not a lot. We're used to 30 seconds TikTok things these days, but 13 minutes may feel big because that's an important topic. You're gonna learn a few things. You're gonna learn why alignment is so critical, how to create more impact. And the meat of this book is about debunking a myth, debunking the myth of traditional business storytelling that most people think is only about hooking more clients with better marketing. This is not what this should be about. There is a difference between a story and a narrative. Storytelling is awesome, but building a narrative with storytelling is what gets you to the next level. And in the book, you'll find out about 5 powers and 10 principles to mobilize people. So I give concrete actions, concrete steps you can take, and I give my examples of some of my clients who've done it.
That's amazing. I'm signing up. I am so into this. This is the whole point. Now, this is the creative and the strategic, and everything powerful in business has to do with your message.
Together. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. So it comes, that's when it comes together.
Yes.
When you get this book, you know, you'll be asked for your email. I send you maybe a follow-up. I don't spam people because I feel like it's up to you to decide if this is for you or not, and just tell me if you need help.
Yes, you guys take him up on that offer, really dial into your story, to your pitch story offer, and have a strategic narrative that isn't just about getting that new lead or just, collecting another email or whatever, and monetize it with real soul-centered, heart-centered intention first, and know what that is, so everyone can jump on board and know that that you can help them with their mission. So so awesome that you were here. Guillaume, I so appreciate you and all your insights. And everyone, don't forget strategic narrative. You can go to metahelm.com/get.
Just go to strategicnarrative.com. It just gets you there.
Okay, strategicnarrative.com.
Yeah, that's the secondary link.
Perfect. So yes, and then there you can work with him and see if he can help you dial into the most effective message for your business. So that is really awesome, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Do you have any last words of inspiration for the audience?
Well, Charity, I want to say your podcast is awesome, and I was so honored that I was here for the 50th. I'll leave you with these guys. Building a strategic narrative is not an act of literature. It's an act of leadership. So it's time for you to step up and do it.
Yes, it's time. Really dial into your soul mission of that business so you can enjoy it and help others. It's the best way to go. So thank you again for being here. Guillaume, I really appreciate that insight, and all your creative strategic planning models are so impressive. I love it. Just inspired me. So yay.
Happy to be here. Happy to help, Charity. It was a great. That energized me so much. So.
Oh, good. Well, we will be in touch, and everyone, thanks for listening. And, don't forget, you don't have to list everything. You can draw a picture of, what your success looks like. So try that as well. All right. Have a beautiful day. Ciao.
Bye, Charity.